Hi, I'm John Mallos. Welcome to this live edition of Connect with Me on the showroom floor at Ventura TV on this Wednesday morning. More fallout from the General Flynn resignation the other day. 436 MeTV option 11. Another guest in the studio today to talk about the Trump administration and some of the chaos going on behind the scenes. You're welcome to call in. We have an open phone line. Be here for the next hour. Back in a moment.
Tonight I want to discuss the importance of the television medium to the American people.
All right, back here on the program. Glad you're here on Connect with Me on MeTV Fresno on this Wednesday morning, talking politics once again. And what a dramatic show we had yesterday with the one and only Bradley Hart and generating that phone call from Merced. That was absolutely classic. We're going to continue our conversation on politics and what's going on at the White House today with our guest, of course, Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, meeting with the president this morning. The news conference wrapped up just a few minutes ago. We'll talk a little bit about that. Also, we'll talk about immigration and some of the other things going on that Trump has certainly tried to pass through with executive orders and what has happened since then. And of course, we're going to talk about General Flynn here in just a moment. But tomorrow, quick programming note, we'll talk about Black History Month. It's a special guest in the studio. We'll talk about that. It's all month long for the month of February. Last month, we celebrated the birthday, of course, of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And this month, we're celebrating Black History Month, of course, not only here in Fresno, but all around the nation. So we'll talk about that. And on Friday, we have Peter Nazaridian in the house. He is our resident counselor, and we'll see what he has up his sleeve on Friday. For now, you're watching us on Comcast Channel 375 as usual. It is Xfinity, Comcast Cable. If you don't have it, no problem. 43.6 and 13.1 over-the-air broadcast with a digital antenna Monday through Friday, live 10 o'clock to 11 o'clock. And believe it or not, and like it or not, you may not like it, I don't know, but it replays 2 more times on this day. You may like that, who knows? 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 13.6 YouTube, 8 o'clock tonight, 4.6 Biz TV. After that, you can catch us on YouTube. Hey, how about that dramatic conversation we had yesterday with our one and only Bradley Hart, the media expert. Has been around many years. 62 appearances on this program so far in the last 5 years for Bradley Hart. That is an amazing record. But we got some fiery phone calls yesterday regarding what's going on inside the Trump administration. Is it chaos? Is it turmoil? Or is this what Donald Trump planned? Now, a bombshell story in today's New York Times talking about some of Donald Trump's, the president's aides, having communications with some of the Russian intelligence officials prior to the election, like during the campaign. One in particular, Paul Manafort. You remember more than a year ago, this guy was gone. He was out of there. He was head of the Trump campaign for a long time, and then he was given the boot. He left. So the New York Times with this huge story today talking about how all these investigations are going on, how the wiretaps are creating a whole list of conversations that Trump administration officials had with these Russian officials. In the meantime, this comes on the heels of General Flynn himself being forced to resign as the National Security Director just the other day. Here's a report from the Associated Press.
President Donald Trump was told in late January that his top national security aide had misled the vice president, but his resignation didn't come until Monday night. On Tuesday, the White House says General Michael Flynn was finally forced out over a breakdown in trust. Press Secretary Sean Spicer says Flynn either misled Vice President Mike Pence and others or forgot critical details about his call with the Russian ambassador to the U.S. Flynn resigned his position late Monday after reports that he addressed sanctions with the diplomat while President Obama was still in office. The White House says it determined the call didn't pose a legal issue.
That's it, pure and simple. It was a matter of trust.
The president instruct him to talk about sanctions?
No, absolutely not. No. But no, and there's no, that's never.
So would you prefer you had not done that?
Well, I think the president had no problem with the fact that he acted in accord with what his job was supposed to be doing.
President Trump ignored reporters' questions about Flynn during an event Tuesday, but tweeted, quote, "The real story here is why are there so many illegal leaks coming out of Washington?" But on Capitol Hill Tuesday, Democrats called for an independent investigation. In question is whether General Flynn's conversation violated the Logan Act, a little enforced law prohibiting U.S. citizens from trying to influence a foreign government dispute with the United States.
What did the president know, and when did he know it? Was the president aware of Flynn's efforts? Did he support them?
House Speaker Paul Ryan said Trump also made the right decision.
You cannot have a national security advisor misleading the vice president and others. So I think the president was right to ask for his resignation.
Well, it's unprecedented to have a national security advisor resign within 24 days of taking office.
Nora Ben-Sahel of American University says the resignation will only fuel greater scrutiny on the Trump administration by Congress.
You're already seeing moves to put together some legislation in Congress that would make it much harder for the president to lift any sanctions on Russia. That legislation hasn't passed yet, but it seems to have a fair bit of bipartisan support.
Meanwhile, President Trump has named Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg as interim national security advisor. He advised Trump during the campaign. Robert Bumstead, Associated Press.
Live in our studio right now is Bradley Hart. He is the assistant professor of media communications and journalism at Fresno State. He's been here before, and he knows all about what's going on, well, to a certain extent, in the White House and elsewhere. We'll talk about this and immigration and what the Justice Department is doing to try to, fend off some of these accusations that are coming the president's way and the administration officials having contact with Russians. Really? Is that really true? Is that what the wiretaps say? Because as you know, the NSA is always listening to, especially when it comes to Russian intelligence. If you have communications with anybody from Russia and you work in the government, they are recording those conversations. So, anxious to hear if we will ever hear what was in those conversations with General Flynn and maybe some others that may come out. All right, 436-MeTV, option 11. If you want to call in and weigh in, do you think there is chaos and turmoil in the White House? Or is this how Donald Trump planned it all along? Anxious to hear from you. Back in a moment.
It's Sully and Russ on the Big Biz Show.
It's your biz.
And maybe they'll start listening to Baldwin McCullough.
Now, before you make any money moves, check in with the Brain Trust.
And you are starting your week off right.
Biz TV is now on KBHF Channel 4.6.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook, it's nice. But when you love the Samsung big screen we deliver, it's even better. Our website is cool, and it's a good place to start. But you really should touch the merchandise before you buy. Time for that upgrade to an HD 3D web-enabled Samsung TV. Get the best selection, price, and service in town without waiting. Come in to Ventura TV Appliance and touch the merchandise today.
Back here on the program, 436-MeTV, option 11. What say you about the Trump administration? Bradley Hart is here again. Good to see you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. So what appearance is this for you?
Not 60 or whatever it is for my dad, but I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
Is he watching today, do you think?
I'm sure he is. I'll probably call in.
Yeah, he may call in. Well, we had enough of him yesterday. Just don't call in, all right? Just sit back and relax. Drink your iced tea and in that rocking chair, right?
Absolutely.
62 appearances. Amazing. We had an amazing phone call from Merced yesterday. So what's your take on what's going on? Is it true, or is it my imagination that there is turmoil within the White House?
I think there's no doubt there's turmoil. I mean, you asked the question as to whether this was planned somehow by the president. I think that's a bit far-fetched to suggest that it's planned. I mean, I think you might think that this is. I think one road you might go down is thinking this may be how Trump likes to govern. He likes to govern in a climate where there's competition.
Right.
He talks a lot about having sort of internal strife that he can benefit from in that sense. That's sort of always been his MO. So it's possible that he wanted some amount of this, but there's no way you want your national security advisor to resign in 4 weeks. I mean, that is unprecedented, and that there's no way that was planned.
Maybe not. That certainly wasn't planned, but I mean planned in the sense that business is going along as usual, the way that Donald Trump and the president envisioned it would happen in his mind once he found out. I'm sure he was surprised that he was elected, but once he found out he won, he probably had this vision in his head how he wanted to conduct business at the White House. Am I right?
Well, I think that's true, and I think you hit on a great point, which is that I think he was surprised that he won. And we know that from a number of, obviously, articles that have been done, but also if you look at the way the administration rolled out their agenda. They almost have no agenda at this point. One of the key things to note is that they have nothing progressing in Congress whatsoever. They're trying to do all these things by executive order, which can sort of work for a period of time, but some of these executive orders will not hold up in the courts unless Congress legislates following them being issued. So they have a real problem here, I think. And the issue with Flynn is not necessarily that it's going to be a larger scandal, which I think it will be to some extent, but they risk getting bogged down in this. They need to move on. They need to try to get back on the legislative bandwagon here and get something rolling.
One of the things I heard on the radio this morning, and I listen to Rush Limbaugh occasionally to hear what, I try to listen to everything, the left and the right. Limbaugh, obviously on the right. He was saying that this is all fake news. New York Times is making all this up, and really, the Obama administration, the previous administration, President Obama is out there lurking in the shadows, in the bushes, creating this shadow government to try to overthrow Donald Trump's administration. True or false?
I think an excellent work of fiction, probably. You know, we saw some photos the other day of the former president windsurfing with, you know, down in Australia or something. So I don't think he's forming much of a shadow government right now.
He's not peeking through the windows at the White House, right? He's not a peeping Tom.
I doubt that. I think he's probably enjoying retirement, as many former presidents do, or most former presidents.
But do you think he might be working behind the scenes to try to maybe create some unsettlement within the administration?
I doubt the former president is. I mean, there's no question that Democrats are going to pounce on this, though. I mean, that's the nature of politics. We saw in the story we just, you know, saw that, you know, Elijah Cummings and some people like that are already pouncing on this issue. That's just the nature of politics. You would expect them to do that. The question will be whether this story has legs, and we don't know that yet. It's still early days on this. I think the big question is whether Flynn himself will testify in some form or fashion. Congress almost has an obligation, in my mind, to subpoena him at this point.
Well, here's the thing. There's General Flynn right there. He's a 3-star general. Michael Flynn, I mean, this guy's the top of his class. He knows the government inside out. I asked your dad this question yesterday. Why in the world would a guy like General Flynn, knowing what he knows about the military, knowing what he knows about the government, how government operates, he knows more than most Americans. Why would he take a chance on talking to a Russian official? Doesn't he know that he eventually will be caught if he did anything wrong?
Doesn't he know better is the question. Yeah, I think this is really the million-dollar question, and this is what's going to play out over the next few weeks, is whether he was ordered to do this by someone, whether he was encouraged to do it, and the question is not whether the NSA or our intelligence services were listening, but inevitably the Russians would have recorded these calls as well. And this, I think, was the real issue with General Flynn, was that if there was indeed some sort of borderline discussion about sanctions, which, you know, may have been in violation of the law, if the Russians knew that as well and had that recorded, that does give them credibility or leverage over the White House, potentially.
Blackmail? Are we talking because I heard blackmail yesterday come up, and the day before when General Flynn resigned. So who would blackmail our government, or who would blackmail General Flynn? Who would blackmail the president? Would it be Russia?
Well, it could be any number of intelligence services, right? I mean, if you know that someone has done something borderline illegal or that at least looks bad in the public sphere, that gives you leverage over them. That gives you a form of potentially blackmail. So I think that's probably what is at the heart of this. When they realized that Flynn's conversations had also been inevitably recorded by the Russians, then that was really, I think, the reason he had to step down. Keep in mind the National Security Advisor is an incredibly powerful position. A lot of Americans aren't familiar with what that role is, but that is essentially the most classified position in the government. This is an individual that has access to all of our state secrets.
And so when you say that that's the most, would you say that's the most important position in the administration besides being president?
Possibly. I mean, in terms of intelligence services and access to and knowledge of how our intelligence agencies work, yes. I mean, in the sense that that individual is responsible and has more of a direct interest in interaction with the intelligence community than the president does. Remember that the intelligence community briefs the president about key things in that daily intelligence briefing, but the National Security Advisor is really responsible for setting the agenda in terms of what the president is aware of, what they're concerned about. So this role is incredibly important. I mean, if you think about the most powerful national security advisors in history, think of McGeorge Bundy, people like that during the Vietnam era. These people really are critical.
Wow. And so who's likely to take his place, would you say?
Well, we don't know. I mean, David Petraeus' name has been mentioned,
I
of course,
heard
the former head of the CIA. I mean, I think that's an interesting one because, of course, he had some issues with leaking classified information as well.
I know.
So
Ex-girlfriend, ex-lover, I believe.
His biographer, yeah. At
his
the time.
biographer turned out to be
more than a biographer.
More
yes.
than biographer. That's right. And so will those leaks hurt him, and will the Democrats bring that up as an issue?
Well, we don't know. I mean, they'll bring it up as an issue, but this is not a position that's subject to confirmation. This is an appointment by the president. So there's no real way to prevent Trump from naming whoever he wants in that sense. But
does he want to go in that direction, knowing Petraeus has passed and knowing what Flynn did? Does he want to take a chance with a guy like Petraeus, knowing what just happened with Flynn?
I would think not, but I mean, I think in this administration it's hard to know. The other factor that's at play here is that the president has not staffed a vast majority of White House positions. There's hundreds of positions the president normally staffs. The president, our current president, has appointed several dozen of those. So there's a huge number of people or positions that are just empty at the moment that would normally at this point in the administration be staffed. And that, I think, is part of the reason why we're not seeing a huge push for legislation in Congress. We're seeing, people like Paul Ryan, who we just saw in the clip, are almost being caught unawares by some of this because those normal liaison sort of roles don't exist.
Why aren't those positions filled?
Well, we don't know. I mean, the president hasn't shown an interest in it. I mean, it could be that there's instability within the White House itself. We really don't know.
Caller, go ahead. You're on the air with Bradley Hart.
Yeah, I'd like to direct your question to Hart. Suppose that Donald Trump knew about the phone calls and whatnot, and so he wouldn't be, I guess, part of what happened to Flynn. Is that a way to get him impeached? Or what would it take to get impeached? Would that be a big no-no, or what do you think?
It's a really good
Thank
question.
you.
Oh, no, absolutely. I think it's a really good question and maybe one of the most important ones that we're going to face. I don't know if that in itself would be impeachable. I mean, to be impeached, you have to have committed a high crime or misdemeanor.
You mean if he knew about the phone calls?
I mean, if he knew about, well, we know that he knew about them. I mean, maybe not at the time, but he knew about them several weeks ago at least.
But what would
right?
it take to get him impeached? Would he have to know the content of those conversations?
I think he would have had to have ordered them, potentially. He would have had to have ordered General Flynn to make those calls and ordered him to say something that was a violation of the Logan Act, for instance. So the Logan Act is this interesting piece of legislation that's never actually been enforced, but it prevents private citizens from negotiating on behalf of our government. So you or I can't fly to Germany and negotiate with Angela Merkel on behalf of our government, right? And that is what it appears that General Flynn may have done. So I think, the impeachment question, we're nowhere near there
caller.
yet.
So, okay, go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Hi, John and Dr. Hart. I was just calling because I had a question for both of you. Would you agree with my assessment if I said that Donald Trump is both a slumlord and a sex offender? I'll take my answer off the air.
Go ahead, Bradley.
I think that's
you're the guest.
a lot of loaded terminology. I mean, I'm not an expert on President Trump's real estate holdings, so I can't really evaluate on the slumlord aspect. I think during the campaign this issue was brought up in terms of some of this terminology. I don't have strong opinions on it. I think frankly some of that language doesn't really advance the conversation. So I think it's important to litigate things based upon facts rather than using very loaded terminology. But I realize that people feel very passionately about these issues.
Right, and so to litigate these in court, you need hardcore facts. But the perception of Donald Trump is the same as any other president who has served, obviously, in the White House. There's a certain perception perception doesn't necessarily mean reality. Am I right?
Absolutely. I mean, anytime you run for president, your life is put through a very high level of scrutiny in that sense. And I think during the campaign, the tape that emerged of the now president making remarks that I think everyone universally agreed were obscene and inappropriate. I mean, that will continue to do a lot to color people's perception of him for many years to come.
Right.
I mean, that is essentially the way that he is known to many Americans.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that the president went out and groped a dozen women, but we heard the comments.
Correct.
And the comments are almost just as bad as having done it.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there are some cases that are pending relating to that. We don't know what's going to happen with those. There are civil suits that are in various stages of making their way to court. So, you know, I think, you know, in this country, we're innocent until proven guilty of something that is, in fact, a crime. So, you know, I think we will see how those cases play out in the years to come. You know, I don't know what's going to happen on those. It's impossible to know.
Hey, a lot more to talk about here on the program with Bradley Hart, 436-ME-TV, option 11 if you want to call in and weigh in on the Trump administration and whether or not there is turmoil, whether or not there is chaos. We've heard these two terms a lot the last few days or so, especially what has happened with Michael Flynn, the former National Security Advisor who resigned on Monday. Back with more of our show in just a moment.
Ventura TV Appliance Center. We're the save energy, save time, save money place. The Energy Star qualified #1 rated high-efficiency Cabrio from Whirlpool Place. You heard right. Right now, save big on select Whirlpool Cabrio laundry pairs and pay no interest when paid in full within 6 months. At the hometown low price, think outside the big box place. Since 1951, Ventura TV Appliance Center. We're working hard to be your place.
The Justice Network is here. If you haven't tuned in, you're missing a great lineup of gripping stories of real crime, plus an unprecedented effort by viewers like you to play an active role in making your community safer. You can help support law enforcement by providing information that may lead to the apprehension of dangerous criminals or find a missing child. Great shows and your chance to fight crime, only on the Justice Network.
All right, back here with Bradley Hart. I want to put up the picture of Michael Flynn again because I want to talk about what he said in his letter, and this is what he wrote to the president, to the American public. He said, quote, I'm quoting now, Bradley, "Unfortunately, because of the fast pace of events," that's what he's blaming. He's blaming this on the fast pace of events. "I inadvertently briefed the vice president-elect and others with incomplete information regarding my phone calls with the Russian ambassador." Two things that bother me. He's blaming this on the fast pace of events, and he lied to the vice president. How can you do that?
Supposedly inadvertently, he says.
Inadvertently.
Right. I mean, that's what he has to say in that sense. I mean, this was the real issue, right?
He lied to the vice president.
Well, indeed. And this is, of course, a way to insulate Mike Pence from this criticism because, of course, the suggestion was then that either Mike Pence had lied to the American public in public appearances or that, in fact, he had been lied to, and Flynn is taking the blame for that effectively. So I think from a political standpoint, they have no choice but to sort of hang it on Flynn.
Speaker of the House said yesterday has no intention of creating a mass investigation throughout Congress, does not want to investigate, and Devin Nunes, head of the Intelligence Committee, the chair, of course, says he's not interested either in investigating Flynn or having hearings or anything of that nature. What do you make of that?
Not surprising. It's Republican-controlled Congress. I mean, I think the reality here is if the Democrats were in control, we'd have a special prosecutor already appointed and investigating this. Devin Nunes is my congressman and the congressman for many of your viewers and maybe for you. I think very interestingly, locally, this is an individual that we can ask about this. And Devin Nunes obviously is a key player in Congress. He is the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, a man who could be potentially considered for the post of National Security Advisor, I would think, given his experience as well. So I think, there's a local angle to this story, too.
I don't think, and this is just my opinion from what I know of Devin Nunes, he's been a guest on this program quite a few times before, by the way. Even after he became the chair, he came on this program. But is he hiding out at this point? He's not doing interviews. I see he did one on Fox about 2 or 3 weeks ago, but I think that was the last one he did. Occasionally he'll appear on Ray Appleton's program on KMJ, but is he in hiding right now, do you think?
Oh, that's a very good question. I don't know. I mean, I haven't seen anything from him locally. I've seen him quoted in the national press recently because, as you say, he is a key player in all this, and it's a really important role in terms of, you know, all this stuff with General Flynn and just the general national security apparatus more widely. So, yeah, I think Devin Nunes would be a fascinating guest to have on the show.
I'd like to get him back on, and I actually have put out a few calls to his PR person in D.C., and no success yet, but I'll let the viewers know. Another phone call coming in. Go ahead, you're on the air.
Hi, I'm just calling back. I know it's loaded language, but would you agree with me if I said Donald Trump was a racist and a fucking idiot?
Oh, man. Hey, you know what? Listen. What can I say after that? All right, you know better than to call in and use the F word, okay? You know better than that. There are FCC regulations. I could care less what you think about Donald Trump. I could care less what you think about Obama. I don't care about you and your politics. Just don't call here and use the F word, okay? Or we're going to track, we've already got your number and tracked it down and we'll block it. Don't call here and curse and use the F word. I've been doing this show for 5 years. Most of our callers, even though they disagree with Bradley Hart or Dennis Hart or John Mallos or whoever comes on as a guest, don't call here and use foul language, okay? Let's take a break after that because I'm incensed about it, and I guarantee you, whoever's called in, we are going to track your number down and block you from calling it ever again on this show. 436-MeTV, option 11. I rarely lose it on this show, Bradley, but that ticks me off. And even though I'm ticked off, I'm not going to use the F-bomb on you. Back in a moment.
Revin is now on KVHF channel 4.4. Not sure what you're watching? Want to see what's coming up next? Or just want to browse what's on without the hassle of flipping channels? Your wish has come true. Now you can view schedules for all the digital TV channels available in the Central Valley. Get local weather updates and forecasts, and listen to nationally syndicated Biz Talk Radio, all on KVHF 4.1. Rescan your TV now, then tune in to Digital Channel 4.1 to start enjoying the all-new TV Guide.
Take a look at this. Let's play.
This is too hip for you. I'll slow down.
Let's play.
Watch all your favorite classic game shows on Buzzer TV, KVBC Digital Channel 13.7.
All right, back here on the program, 436-MeTV, option 11. If you do call in, don't curse, don't use the F-bomb, because our executive producer upstairs has already tracked the number down, or he's tracking it down, and it will be blocked. You can't curse on the air. It's against FCC regulations. I don't care how much you disagree with us or our guest, but in 5 years I've been doing the show, nobody's ever used the F-bomb on here, Bradley. I'm shocked. I mean, that shows no class at all. Anyway, caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
Yeah, this goes out to that last caller. That was a really heartfelt, passionate moment, I guess, in journalism. Anyways, this is what I want to say to the last caller. You know, Trump's an American just like you, but you know what? You really don't back your American brothers. So I would like to see you backing your buddies at the protest. We'll just have to see you guys out there. And you've probably never been socked and rocked. But go to the protest, because I know you don't like Donald Trump, and you won't be liking me and my friends, but we'll be seeing you guys out there.
What are you talking
Thanks,
about?
John.
What are you
Sorry
talking-
you had
Hey,
to go
caller,
through that.
Hey,
We're trying
caller,
to keep it
hang
clean.
on. Caller, hang on. Are you there?
Yeah.
I have no idea what you just said or what you're talking about. What protest are you talking about?
Just every time Trump does something, you know, they show up at Nunes' office or they're at Brandt's, and they're just protesting every single move Trump does. And it's only 28 days into his presidency. So, I mean, they got like 4 years of doing this. And what happens if, God forbid, they assassinate Trump? Then the other people who do support Trump, you know, it's going to put the whole country in turmoil. Bad. It'll be bad. For the people who had hope when Trump won, they had no hope when Obama was in because, you know, they were just getting dirt thrown on their graves. So now they have hope. Now they feel like they're alive. Now they feel like they're free again. And these people that just called in that were cussing want to keep us all oppressed. Well, we're tired of being oppressed. You know?
Okay.
Thank
All
you,
right.
John.
Thank you very much. But like your dad said here yesterday, everybody has the right to protest as long as they don't destroy property.
Absolutely, and you know, passions are very high right now. We've seen that just in the past couple calls. You know, and I think as a country, this is going to be a difficult time for us because passions are so high. You know, and the president is making moves that a lot of people find controversial or offensive, and they have the right to speak out on those issues too.
Right, but they don't have a right to do what they did in Berkeley.
No question. No question.
Some suggest that they were professional rioters hired by George Soros to be brought in and cause disruption because, you know, when you think about it, Berkeley, I remember the Vietnam War. I remember all the riots and everything, that the free speeches. It's supposed to be a free speech campus. So why would Berkeley deny free speech to someone that comes in, even though they might disagree with him, even though he might be far right-wing radical? Isn't it free speech for everyone?
Well, indeed, this is the great irony of what happened there. And I think this suggestion that it's somehow professional paid protesters is probably incorrect. I mean, this is Berkeley that we're talking about here. So there's no shortage of people who protest frequently there and have, you know, very passionate views on things. So, you know, I don't think that we need to go into Soros-based conspiracy theories there.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, I just thought I'd bring it up because you never know. And so, you know, I forget if I asked you this before. Did I ask you about the shift left to right?
No.
I didn't. Not yet.
not
Okay.
yet.
Because but I'm going to ask you that now. Okay. The shift from left to right. Heard on one of the news channels the other day that the country needed a correction because we were going too far radical left with the news media, with the news outlets, with the television networks, and with our politics. Too far to the left, radical left. So Donald Trump's election was like a correction, bringing it back more toward the center and maybe a little bit right.
Yeah, I think this is how a lot of people are viewing this in that sense. And whether you think that we were radically left or not, essentially, there's no question that the Obama administration was left of center in that capacity. So, yeah, I think a lot of people are looking at this as there's an inevitable shift that takes place. We see this throughout American history where we go from having, you know, a further to the left, further to the right administration, and then generally speaking, those administrations are out of office. It's extremely difficult, let's keep in mind, for any presidency or any party to hold the presidency for more than 2 terms. And this is what happened to Hillary Clinton, obviously, that she in part lost that election because the Democrats had held the office for too long.
Right, 2 terms, meaning that an extension of the Obama administration. 8 years with President Obama, and then perhaps 4, and then maybe 4 more with Hillary Clinton would be an extension of the Democratic Party in office for 16 years.
Correct, and that's almost unprecedented, right? You have to go back to people like FDR, who, of course, wins 4 terms and dies in his 4th. Reagan to the first President Bush, you have 3 terms, and then, of course, the Republican Party loses to Bill Clinton. So, you know, historically speaking, what happened to Hillary Clinton is not at all unusual. And people like me were actually saying well before the election that it was going to be an uphill climb for her, even though she was favored.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton, let's put her picture up if we have it. I don't know if we have Hillary's picture up, but she came here to Fresno, went out and saw the rally, but it was the same old thing, the same old politics. But would you agree, and I don't want to rehash the election, but she was at the wrong place at the wrong time on 2 different occasions. In 2008, you had Barack Obama, first African-American to win the presidency, and then this past year with Donald Trump, the reason maybe that she lost was because of this shift going too far left. So maybe wrong place at the wrong time, both occasions for Hillary?
Absolutely. I mean, keep in mind that 2008 was her time to win, probably, and nobody saw Barack Obama coming. I mean, we forget how contested that particular primary was. There were a ton of Democrats in the race. Barack Obama was not favored at all. She was the favorite to win the nomination and the presidency, and he just managed to beat her. I mean, it was very close, though, in the end. So I think that's right. I mean, wrong place, wrong time twice. I think history is going to remember Hillary Clinton as someone who was probably qualified to be president and just never quite got there.
Wrong time, wrong place.
Well, indeed, almost like an Adlai Stevenson character, if you go back to the 1950s, right? Who loses against Dwight Eisenhower, eminently qualified, becomes a great ambassador to the United Nations under Kennedy, but just would never make it to the presidency.
Yet her husband, right place at the right time.
Indeed.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely, and beats George H.W. Bush, who is, of course, a much more qualified president than he is in 1992. So, yeah, I mean, this is the nature of politics.
Yeah, here's an email question before we go to break here. Is it possible that Leon Panetta, who's a Democrat, could become Donald Trump's national security advisor? What do you think? Former CIA director, too.
I mean, I think anything is possible. I think it's very unlikely because of Panetta's connection with the Clinton campaign. You know, I think national security advisor is much more personal than CIA director. This is a man that the president needs to be able to rely on and have a very good personal relationship with. I don't think there's any chance that a Democrat's going to get that job.
And I don't think Panetta would accept it because from an ideological standpoint, they couldn't be further apart.
Absolutely, and I don't think that Leon Panetta is going to want a piece of the Trump administration. I don't think he wants to be associated with that. I mean, honestly, a person who is eminently qualified, though I doubt she would do it, would be Condoleezza Rice, who, of course, occupied that role during the first Bush administration.
Would she want it again?
I don't think she would, but I mean, this is the caliber of person that you're looking at, right? Somebody she is now a professor.
Squeaky clean.
Squeaky clean, absolutely, has an immense amount of technical knowledge, you know, works at the Hoover Institution at Stanford. There's no doubt about her qualifications for these roles. I mean, that's traditionally who gets these jobs. People who are fairly low profile at the time, but are technocrats.
Yeah, she works at the Hoover Institution.
She does.
Along with our guy, what's his name? Victor Davis Hanson. He's there too.
As was General Mattis.
As was General Mattis. Yep. That's right. So three biggies just there, Bradley. There you go.
Absolutely.
Oh, man. We're here with Bradley Hart. He's a biggie. 436-MeTV, option 11. By the way, my friends, just got a little news flash here. Our friend Michael Flahiff is now blocked. He's the one that called and cursed. So, Michael, you're blocked. Sorry about that. But you know what? It's your fault. You called in and cursed. Back in just a moment. 436-MeTV, option 11, if you want to call in and weigh in.
Tune in to Heartland for the best in true country music. Relive vintage specials, one-of-a-kind concerts, and country music's earliest videos. Heartland is the heart of country, the only place where you can find country music, country stars, and country lifestyles 24/7. Heartland, the heart of country.
Now on channel 13.2.
Want to create something extraordinary? Create perfection. Our lifestyle appliances make it easy. KitchenAid, Ventura TV appliance, and you, when only the best will do.
Back here with Bradley Hart, the one and only, and we have a call waiting. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Yes, I just want to make a comment that you always say when you're growing up as a child that anybody can be president, anybody could run for president. You can be whatever you want to be in life. And then when you're an adult, you can only be president if you're a senator, a governor, or the House representative. And I just think everybody talking about, oh, he's qualified, they're not qualified. I don't think people should put labels on people. You're qualified, you're not qualified. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, I think what the caller is saying is, there's this idea in America that anyone can be president, and to an extent this is true, but the caller makes a good point that, of course, the people who have been presidents have often been governors and senators. I mean, that's the most common route. I think when we talk about people being qualified or not, I mean, these are difficult jobs. Being president is hard, and I think the current president is finding that out now, a man who has never been in government before. But, while Donald Trump has been the CEO of a major corporation, he's now the CEO of the world's biggest bureaucracy, one of the world's largest militaries. I mean, this is very different. This is very different stuff. So when we use the term qualified, it's not necessarily that someone comes from a particular background. It's that they have the experience necessary to run the government effectively in that capacity. So I think that, the dream of America is still alive in that sense. Anyone can run for Congress. If the caller wants to run for Congress, he can run against Devin Nunes or Jim Costa, whatever district he's in the next election. That's fully possible to do.
Yeah. Well, as you know, earlier this morning, prior to this program getting on the air at 10 o'clock, the president had a news conference, joint news conference with Benjamin Netanyahu. He is the prime minister of Israel, and he talked about fake news, and he's tired of the fake news. All the leaks coming out. Who's doing the leaking, by the way, Bradley?
Well, we don't know. I mean, it's obviously people in the White House. And this is another issue, incidentally, is that we're seeing an amazing amount of leaking for this point in an administration. Normally, this takes 2 or 3 years to get to this level. But this indicates there's real factions within the administration. I don't think there's any doubt about that.
That's a problem.
Well, it's a real problem. And that's why I really think, in terms of predictions, we're going to see a house cleaning here. I don't think the president has any choice but to clean house. I think we're going to see the departure of some more big figures.
Wow. And I saw a posting on Facebook, which has posted fake news before, but I saw somebody post their commentary about it's Reince Priebus that's the leaker. You need to get rid of that rat. I saw that on Facebook and I kind of laughed. And is there any speculation as to who it might be? It couldn't possibly be Steve Bannon, could it?
Well, it could be anyone. I mean, or it could be they're all leaking at different times to different publications, right? I mean,
at night they're sitting there with their cell phone leaking, but can't you track it down who's leaking?
Well, it's difficult, right? I mean, the only way you can really track it down, short of electronic surveillance of these individuals, which they probably are under some form of, is to actually leak information selectively and see what makes it into the press. And this is the common way you hunt down leakers: is tell one person something.
I'll meet you at midnight at the mailbox on H Street.
Oh, I'm sure. It would be all. It could be that, but it's probably all digital now. I mean, there are some Twitter feeds that have been set up that are purportedly leakers from inside the White House. We, of course, have no way of knowing how legitimate this is, and some of it seems very questionable. And it's impossible that it's all real in that sense. So you have, people who are legitimately leaking. You have counter leaks. You have misinformation being put out there. We as the public have no way of knowing what's true and what's not in this capacity. But what it does indicate, and I think what is very clear, is that there are real factions. There are real problems in this administration.
Your dad may have brought this up yesterday. I'm not sure, but I've heard this before. Is Donald Trump, in your opinion, and I'll get to that Netanyahu news conference in a moment here, talking about fake news, but is Donald Trump coming to the realization that he can't govern the U.S. government the way he managed his business and his hotels, because there are tremendous roadblocks, there are checks and balances. As say, the owner of Trump Plaza, he can say, I want you to do this, this, and this, and it's done tomorrow. In the United States government, it doesn't work that way, because you have Congress to answer to, you have the judicial system, you have this check and balance between Congress and the presidency, the executive branch. How much frustration, knowing Donald Trump the way we do, how much frustration do you think is built up inside of him?
Oh, I'm sure an immense amount, because as you say, running a business is very different than running the government. There are all of these roadblocks. When you are a CEO, your only real obligation is to the basics of the law. If you violate the law, you'll be sued or, prosecuted by the government, but that's about it. I mean, your objective is to make money. When you're president, again, you're running the largest bureaucracy, I believe, in the world, one of the world's strongest militaries. You have all of these other checks and balances, and the number of stakeholders is immense. I mean, you can't get anything done unless Paul Ryan is on your side, unless Mitch McConnell is on your side, and you're just not operating in that capacity when you're the CEO of a company. Also, the Trump organization is not publicly traded, so there's no obligation to shareholders. The board of directors is appointed and consists largely of the Trump family. I mean, this is a completely different ballgame.
And then you have to worry about who's backstabbing you in your own administration.
Well, exactly. I mean, and you never see leaks coming out of the Trump organization, right? Because the people who are closest to the decision maker is, Trump's daughter, his son-in-law, his 2 other sons.
So we know they're not leaking.
Well, maybe they are in the administration, but I find it very unlikely. I mean, these are the ultimate loyalists, right, or family members.
Yeah, all right. Okay, so the news conference with Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. Let's play it. He's talking about fake news and the leaks. Donald Trump, the President of the United States.
Thank you, Mr. President, Mr. Prime Minister. Both of you have criticized the Iran nuclear deal and at times even called for its repeal. I'm wondering if you're concerned at all as it relates to not just the National Security Advisor, Michael Flynn, who is recently no longer here, but also some of those events that have been going on with communication in Russia, if that is going to hamper this deal at all, and whether or not it would keep Iran from becoming a nuclear state. And secondly, on the settlement issue, are you both on the same page? How do you exactly term that as it relates to the settlement issue? Thank you.
Michael Flynn, General Flynn, is a wonderful man. I think he's been treated very, very unfairly by the media, as I call it, the fake media in many cases. And I think it's really a sad thing that he was treated so badly. I think in addition to that, from intelligence, papers are being leaked, things are being leaked. It's criminal action, criminal act. And it's been going on for a long time before me, but now it's really going on. And people are trying to cover up for a terrible loss that the Democrats had under Hillary Clinton. I think it's very, very unfair what's happened to General Flynn, the way he was treated, and the documents and papers that were illegally, I stress that, illegally leaked. Very, very unfair. As far as settlements, I'd like to see you hold back on settlements for a little bit. We'll work something out, but I would like to see a deal be made. I think a deal will be made. I know that every president would like to. Most of them have not started till late because they never thought it was possible. And it was impossible because they didn't do it. But Bibi and I have known each other a long time. A smart man, great negotiator. And I think we're going to make a deal. It might be a bigger and better deal than people in this room even understand. That's a possibility. So let's see what we do.
Well, one thing, Donald Trump always talks big, huh? A bigger and better deal than ever before. Bibi Netanyahu and I are buddies going way back.
Going to make a great deal. He's a great negotiator, yeah.
What do you think? Will it happen?
Well, I don't, I mean, peace in the Middle East is sort of the fig that always eludes every administration, I think. And, I think the president is incorrect when he says that nobody starts on that early. I mean, virtually everybody starts on that pretty
Bill
much
Clinton
immediately.
Especially.
Well, yeah, and Jimmy Carter as well. I mean, with the Camp David Accords eventually. I think, the Palestinian-Israeli situation is a very difficult issue, and I think if I were a betting man, I wouldn't be betting on any kind of a deal being made in the next 4 years.
You don't really understand. I got a caller. Wait, hang on a moment. I'll get to you in a moment. But you don't. I didn't really understand that situation fully until I traveled to Israel back in 2000. And when you travel to Israel and walk the streets of Jerusalem and Tel Aviv and the West Bank and some of the settlements, do you fully get a grasp for what's happening and on the ground?
Yeah, I've been in Israel several times myself, and I've walked those same streets in Jerusalem. And
that's why I brought it up.
Yeah, well, it's an incredibly complicated situation.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't understand the Middle East without understanding thousands of years of human history.
Yeah.
And, when you walk through the streets of Jerusalem and you see Palestinian shops, in the old city and things like that, in Israeli-occupied territory, flying the Israeli flag. I mean,
it's a military state.
It's a military state. I mean, you see a huge amount of weaponry on the streets being carried by IDF as well as private citizens. I mean, you check guns. Or you see people checking guns going into restaurants and things like that.
Oh yeah, I experienced that myself. But the close proximity of all these religions and these factions living in such close quarters, and yet the tension. And I hate to use an old term, but you can cut it with a knife.
Well, absolutely. And I mean, the president has appointed his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, as his Middle East envoy.
Jewish? He's Jewish.
Who is Jewish, yeah. And, the president is touting this as the breakthrough move, effectively, as the president often does. And I think the odds of someone who has no diplomatic experience coming to or arranging any kind of a deal in that region is pretty unlikely.
Yeah, who's going to have to do it? Donald Trump himself?
Well, I think, what he was saying just now in the clip that we viewed was essentially just come to an arrangement. So giving the Israelis and Palestinians some sort of carte blanche to deal with each other, which everyone tries to do. I mean, that's the only approach you can make.
But the reason I brought it up is because I know you traveled to Israel several times. We talked about it a little bit before in past shows, and the fact of the matter is, in my judgment, just having walked the streets of Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, the West Bank, and all up and down Israel, throughout the state of Israel, in my mind, I doubt very seriously, knowing the mindset of both sides, having been there, I don't think they're going to cut a deal. They're not going to agree.
I think you're right. I mean, the president has opened the door today to a two-state solution or a one-state solution. He doesn't apparently have a preference at this point.
Right.
And I guess that sort of opens up the ball game, but I think the two-state solution is probably off the table at this point. I don't think the Israelis are going to go for that at this stage.
But you agree that both sides will never come together.
Hope springs eternal. I hope they will at some point, but I think at this stage we're unlikely to see anything happen within the next few years.
Yeah, that may be the second coming. I don't know. Maybe that would do it. Who knows? Caller, you're on the air. Go ahead.
You were talking about the way he orders his workers and gets things done. Well, I had drew a cartoon for the grandkids, and I said, well, let's profile Donald Trump. Okay. And the third thing you were talking about a while ago fit perfectly in, because I love John Douglas, Brad Garrett. I watch that Justice Channel constantly. I said, well, number one, when his social education ended at about the 8th grade, he was either a bully or a yes boy. Mm-hmm. Number two, a clue is foreign wives. A lot of the books I read and stuff, good things don't happen in the end when they get a foreign wife. But he treats his wife good, I'm sure. But number three, I said, listen, what he's saying over and over. Why does he say what he does? Why does he just not filter anything? And I says, oh, my God, he's been surrounded by yes men his whole life, probably his childhood. Yeah. But anyway, they got a kick out of it. They got a kick out of my cartoon. I put his bust, and I had stitches on his lips and a hand coming up with a needle in the thread. There, that'll keep his foot out of his mouth. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. Just grandma talk.
All right. Very pleasant call. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Let's get into some of the hardcore stuff about immigration. I want to put up this picture of this mother, this Arizona mother that was deported just last week. Her name is Guadalupe Garcia de Reyes. There she is right there. Apparently, this dates back 8 years now. She stole a Social Security number in order to get a job. They let this thing go for months on end, months, maybe years on end. Hang on, caller, get to you in a moment. And finally, last week, it was determined that she had to leave, go back to her native country of Mexico, basically deported. She was here illegally and stole a Social Security number. Hundreds of people, illegals, are being swept up around the nation, including here in California, and sent back. Guadalupe, the right thing to do?
Well, so the president is saying that these immigration sweeps we're seeing are primarily targeting people who have criminal records or have committed criminal acts.
Right.
I think, the president has made big pledges on undocumented immigrants. He said he's going to deport literally millions of them. So it's going to be really difficult to keep that promise with the level of activity we're seeing now. At some point, they're going to have to expand that beyond people who have criminal records, and that's where it's going to be trickier. I think he's going to have a real problem fulfilling that campaign promise.
All right, caller, quickly, short on time. Go ahead. Very short on time.
Okay. First, I will never curse on your show because you backed up Joe Montana yesterday against Tom Brady. Okay.
No question about it. It's Joe all the way, baby.
Okay. What concerns me more is that they're talking about the National Security Council.
Yeah.
There's actually a lot of commotion going on there, that there's people that have worked with that council for a long time that have requested other assignments because they can't work with the Trump people anymore. And also, Russia, currently, they fired a ballistic missile, which was in violation of an accord signed between Reagan and Gorbachev.
Yeah.
After that, a reconnaissance plane and 3 Russian fighter jets buzzed an American ship out in the ocean.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, there was something else that they did.
It was actually 4 fighter jets, but go ahead. Man, that was amazing.
There was something else that Putin did.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shoot, I forgot. There were 3 things that the Russians did that were just like daring the United States to do.
Well, it had to do with the Ukraine and Crimea. I think they're building up troops there.
Well, there's been increased military activity in the Ukraine.
So it seems to me that to date that I know of, Trump hasn't said anything about what's going on with those Russian fighter jets buzzing the American ship. He's making direct threats against the United States, and he doesn't say anything. So that's more concerning to me than the immigration thing. And this is a direct threat to the United States.
But didn't that also happen under Obama?
Well, so absolutely. So
And
I think
didn't hear Obama say anything about it.
Well,
really.
there's two things happening here. I mean, number one, the caller's absolutely right. There is turmoil in the National Security Council. That is very troubling. I mean, and that's something that the administration is going to have to resolve, and that may be why these leaks are happening as well. I mean, that's another source of a lot of this information, probably. You know, Russia and China both, the other major world powers at this point, always test new administrations. That's not unique. The Russians, I think, especially, are going to be aggressive in this case because they believe, I think, that Trump is more sympathetic to them. He said that explicitly. So they are
during the campaign. He did.
Well, and even as president, he said that Putin is his friend type thing. So I think we're going to see much more of this type of saber rattling from them because they are trying to test the patience of the president.
All right, I want to talk more about immigration. I want to go to 4 full screens. Let's use the first one. It's called USC 1152. You know what happened with the appellate court in San Francisco? They shot down to reinstate his ban, of course, upholding the restraining order that was set by the judge, James L. Robart, up in Seattle. All right, this is what 1152 says. No person shall receive any preference or priority or be discriminated against in the issuance of an immigrant visa because of race, nationality, place of birth, or place of residence, enacted back in 1965. This is what the courts are using and what many Democrats are using as saying, hey, look, you can't ban these people. We know the 7 countries that are banned, so we don't have to put that up. But that's what the states are arguing. That's what the state of Washington, Minnesota argued. Let's go to the next one. Government argument. This is what the President of the United States is arguing. Donald Trump and the government's argument is the federal government is arguing that the ban is legal because admission to the U.S. of foreign nationals who are not residents or citizens is a privilege, not a constitutional right, and the President has broad authority under Section 1182 to regulate that admission. Okay, so this is where the two collide. Who wins out? This is part of U.S. immigration law.
Yeah, we don't know. I mean, obviously, this is why this is in the courts at the moment. I think really what's going to happen here is that Trump is going to issue another executive order, almost certainly, because the first one is not going to hold up in court. They also screwed up the rollout pretty substantially in terms of denying people who had green cards admittance to the country. That's going to be a lawsuit where there's going to be serious money lost by the government. I mean, that was clearly illegal, I think, under most readings of the law. You know, this goes back to an earlier point that we were making, which is that you can only do so much by executive order. That, you know, law that we showed can be changed by Congress. If Congress wants to restrict immigration from certain countries, then Congress should act on that.
What mistakes did the president make, though, in issuing that order, the ban?
Well, it was done sloppily. I mean, it was, yes, there was a list of countries that was there, but they did not brief Homeland Security apparently properly on how to roll it out. Therefore, people were detained at the airports for a long period of time. It's sort of unclear. I mean, as you say, there's basic legality questions about it as well that were not vetted through the appropriate legal channels.
All right, and the disagreement that I had with your father yesterday is the fact that your dad said, hey, go out on national TV and announce it. But that's something the Trump administration has said all along. President Obama telegraphed his punches. That's not what I'm going to do.
Yeah, you know, I don't know whether he should have announced on live TV, but I think they certainly needed to brief the government itself more effectively on these things. And, you know, the fact that they didn't...
How to implement it.
How to implement it, and also just what its intent was. I mean, and what we saw that weekend, as you'll recall, about 3 weeks ago, now it's amazing to say this was only 3 weeks ago, was these spontaneous protests, which were actually quite impressive. I mean, this was huge numbers of people going to oppose this, partially because I think it was rolled out so poorly. There was a great deal of uncertainty as to whether people who were, again, green card holders who happened to be away on vacation, for instance, could even come back to their homes.
You think these protests around the country at several airports, Seattle, Boston, New York, Chicago, L.A., San Francisco, Fresno.
Here in Fresno, indeed, yeah.
Spontaneous?
I think in that case they were. I mean, there was no time to plan them effectively. I mean, in the era of social media, it's very easy to build a protest of people, right? I mean, things go viral. People are passionate about it. The fact that they rolled it out on a Friday night into a Saturday gave people time to protest. That was probably a mistake.
Unbelievable. Here's some of the protests. I believe this is the tear gas being thrown in Seattle to try to disperse the crowd. But if he signs another executive order, we have like 30 seconds. Will you see more of this at airports?
I don't think you will if he does it properly. I mean, it's not a matter of what he puts in the executive order. It's how it's rolled out and how well they explain it to the American people. I mean, this is another issue. They've had a really tough time communicating what this is all about. They've had very combative press conferences, which, we tend to see that as inside ball game for the media and things like that. But it does make a big impact.
But part of his game plan is to be secretive to a certain extent with the American public.
Yeah, I don't think that plays in something like this because this just affects too many people.
Yeah. Hey, Bradley, you're a great guest.
Well, thank you.
I appreciate it very much. Come back again.
And anytime.
All right. Bradley Hart, our guest here out of Fresno State. And listen, you can call in and leave a message if you want with us at 436-MeTV option 11. See you tomorrow with our special guest talking about Black History Month across the nation. Have a good day.
If you have a need to promote your business or event, please consider MeTV Fresno for your next campaign. MeTV reaches over 100,000 of your potential customers in the Fresno area every single week. Plus, you can rest assured that your commercial is running in the greatest family-friendly programs of all time. MeTV Fresno delivers a strong, loyal audience ready to buy, and your campaign will cost a fraction of what you're paying for your advertising now. Call me today to find out how affordable MeTV is at 905-1925.
Explore strange new worlds on MeTV. Seek out new life.
I've seen old photographs of this period. Let's get out of here.
And new civilizations. Boldly go to Mayberry and the Andy Griffith Show.
Weeknights at 8 on MeTV Fresno.
When you like Ventura TV Appliance on Facebook,